Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Craig. Apologize about the delay today, but we seem to be having some problem with our stream a little bit. We're having trouble getting enough bandwidth. So now that we got enough bandwidth, we're here, ready to have a conversation with you today. So this is a topic that actually has had gun rights activists or Second Amendment advocates livid. It is probably one of the most outrageous commentaries that I've ever read in regards to the Second Amendment and the infringements that those who do not seek to support our right to keep and bear arms, the infringements that they would seek to put on that particular right. So let's get into it. According to Doug Pennington, now, mind you, Doug Pennington used to be the communications person for the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence. So we already know that this is an individual who does not believe in your right to keep and bear arms. So he is looking for arguments as to why we do not have a right to keep and bear arms. So in his particular argument, Mr. Doug, or we'll call him Dougie P. Yeah, we'll call him Dougie P. So what Dougie P has to say here is that there's absolutely nothing in the Constitution that allows individuals to have an unlimited number of firearms. His argument is that it says specifically the right to keep and bear arms, which means you have the right to more than one, but you don't have the right to more than two, is the argument that this particular individual is making, Mr. Dougie P. Now, just to kind of read what he's talking about to be real clear, he says, the 27 words of the Second Amendment don't say anything about how many guns one can own in America. Neither do the 7,564 words of the Constitution. He goes on later to say, what we need are tougher rules, tougher and smarter rules that keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people while still allowing law-abiding, rule-following people to arm themselves. I'm not talking about why don't we require reporting of multiple sales of long guns to federal authorities. I'm not talking about bump stocks the shooter used to make his semi-automatic weapons fire like machine guns. And I'm not talking about why people are allowed to own more than, say, 2 firearms without a really good reason. Now, this goes back to something that we've talked about before, and that is the Second Amendment. No, I'm not going to argue on behalf of the Second Amendment. I'm going to argue the Second Amendment, right? And here's the thing: what Dougie P. or Turd Boy here refuses to understand is that very simple word term shall not be infringed. I'm going to talk about the right to keep and bear arms. So one of the things that the left love to do is they love to redefine words, right? They take words out of context and they misuse them. And by redefining a word and trying to move it into today's context or a brand new context, then they change the meaning of what the original intent was. So I'm a believer that if you want to know what someone is saying, you need to understand what they said and what they meant when they said it and what the words meant at that time. So one of the things that I like to do when I go to look at words, in particular when it comes to the Constitution and the writings of the Founding Fathers, I try to use dictionaries or terms that come from that particular time. So great resource. You can find it online. The American Dictionary of the English Language, Noah Webster, 1828. It used to be you could only find, you had to have the actual dictionary, but now you can find the online version of it, and you can look up just about any term or phrase or word and understand what the framers meant at the time in which they wrote many of the documents that they wrote. So let's find out what they meant by infringed. So infringe is the past tense of infringe, which means to break, as contracts, to violate, either positively by contravention or negatively by non-fulfillment or neglect of performance. A prince or private person infringes an agreement or covenant by neglecting to perform its conditions as well as by doing what is stipulated not to be done. To break, to violate, to transgress, to neglect to fulfill or obey, as to infringe a law. The third one is to destroy or hinder, as to infringe efficacy. So here's my point here, is that if you're not supposed to break it, if you're not supposed, there are a person's ability to keep and bear arms. So in other words, if I am seeking to keep and bear arms, if I'm seeking to purchase or keep or own firearms, and it really doesn't matter how many, if I am attempting to own the next firearm and you seek to keep me from doing it, you are infringing on my right, right? If you're going to keep me from owning a firearm, not just a firearm, but that firearm, the next firearm, not just a firearm, a knife, a taser. I mean, at what point do we say, at what point do we start to say that, and this is the thing, their whole idea is that reasonable restrictions, what they call reasonable restrictions. First of all, reasonable restrictions in the minds of people who don't like guns is no one should own a gun. Now, they know that they can't get away with that, so what do? So they come up with stupid things like, well, you should only own 2 guns. Well, okay, so based on what? So in other words, if I go to buy a third one, you keep me from buying it, guess what? You have now infringed on my right. And in the long run, the other thing that comes down to it, and this is where they're really at, is when they say, I don't see a reason why do you need to own? Why do I have to? Even in this argument, even in his piece in Slate Magazine, he talks about this. If you own more than 2 firearms, then you should have to pay a fee. You should have to get background check every 6 months. You should have to have a really good reason why you need to own more than 2 firearms. Once again, this is let's compare it to any other right. What if someone said, "Well, gee, I don't know why you need to go to church more than once a month," and now you have to apply for a permit, and you have to come up with a reason why you really need to go to church more than once a month. I don't understand why you need more than 2 children. So you should have to come up with a permit, and you should have to explain why you need to have more than 2 children. Or, here's a good one, because many of them would say, well, what about an abortion? If you need more than 1 abortion, because, one would think it's such a traumatic experience and everything that you have to go through, that after the first one, there probably wouldn't be a need for, if we're not interested in using abortion as a form of contraceptive, then why would someone need to be able to have a second abortion? But if you put any of those restrictions out there, guess what? They go apeshit crazy. They go crazy. No, you can't do that. Well, why not? I mean, we don't even put restrictions on people who are on welfare having more than a certain number of children. And that's because anything additional to that's a taxpayer expense. Doesn't make sense? Right? I mean, if we're going to start talking about limiting constitutional rights, limiting one's ability to be able to do something, well, guess what? Well, why should you own more than 1 car? Why should you own more than 1 suit? Right? Why should you be able to own more than 1 home? See, they want to put these restrictions on you because, well, they want to control your life. And that's what liberalism is. It is other people believing they know better how to make decisions about how you can live your life, spend your money, raise your children, and defend yourself. They believe they know better than you. And this guy is, well, he's the epitome of an idiot. So anyway, that's my perspective on this one. I know you guys had a chance to read this. I know you guys have seen this post. So let's talk about this one. Oh, let's see. Any other interesting limitations here? Victoria says, or more than 2 pair of shoes. Yeah, I would be guilty. I definitely own more than 2 pair of shoes. So how dare you infringe on my right, to wear nice kicks. Alan says, if they can't line their pocket with cash, they don't care for it. Second Amendment. Exactly. Or publish an article once every 6 months. I would be, you know what? I might be okay with that one. If we could keep MSNBC, why do we need more than 1 liberal TV station? MSNBC, CNBC, ABC, CBS, the whole kit and caboodle of them. And Fox, aside from Fox News, why do you need more than one? We've only got one conservative news channel. Jeremy says Rosa Parks did not need to sit in the front of the bus, but it sure ticked her off when she was told not to. Oh, Jeremy, you went there. That is actually a very, very good one. She didn't need to sit in the front of the bus. Why does she need to sit in the front of the bus? Maybe, okay, tell you what. Maybe she can ride on the bus, in the front of the bus on the way to work, but not on the way back from work. How about that? I mean, why does she need to ride in the front of the bus all the time? Interesting point. Andrew says, let's apply that logic to other rights. You have the right to free speech. Just only Monday through Wednesday, 8 a.m. through 5 p.m., and in government-approved safe spaces. After all, that's what they meant when they made the rule. That's reasonable restriction. Andrew, I agree with your point. Not so much with the fact that that's a reasonable restriction, but excellent point. Excellent point. Jess says infringement. Yes, because people don't want to know what infringement means. Rob George says the Second Amendment isn't about hunting, but let's play a game. If you hunt a deer, elk, quail, and goose, that's 4 firearms you need right there, aside from the two the article suggests would be allowed. Well, here's another idea. I know an individual who uses a particular model handgun to defend his home, right? And interestingly, this individual keeps a model of that handgun in multiple rooms in the house. They're all the same model, all the same make, and so that he knows that no matter where he is, should someone be able to break into his home, he can then defend himself. And guess what? He has muscle memory, so he knows each firearm. It's all the same firearm. So my question is that now this sounds like good preparation, but does he really need more than that? Right? Does he need more than that? What if he wants to then keep a shotgun? Oh, then what if he hunts? Or here's an even better one. What if you participate in 3-gun competitions? Well, there's 3 firearms right there. What if there's so many different reasons why you could get into why you need or want, but it's not about need or want. It's not the Bill of Needs. It's the Bill of Rights. And you have a right to keep and bear arms to the degree that you find necessary to be able to defend yourself, your family, and your country. That is your community and your country. That is your right. And I don't understand why. Well, I do understand why the left doesn't like it, because they don't believe it's a right. They just don't. They believe criminals have rights. They believe that criminals deserve to be protected. But you, me, not so much. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to share these videos. Let your folks know the conversation that we're having here. Let them know where to go if you want to know and understand and get the latest news and information relating to the fight to defend your Second Amendment rights. Anyway, folks, have fun, take care, stay free.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.